Chapter 1. The Chancery Ghost. Wei Luo was known in the Imperial Chancery as the Ghost of the Archives. Pale, quiet, and perpetually swathed in high-collared, muted gray robes, he was a junior strategist of unparalleled skill and unnerving presence. He moved through the marble halls like a shadow, his reports so sharp they could cut the Emperor's enemies without a single soldier being deployed. No one knew he was an Omega. For 12 years, since his first heat at 15 revealed the designation that would have ended his ambitions and made him a political bargaining chip, Wei Luo had suppressed it. He used a complex regimen of rare herbs, rigorous mental discipline, and sheer, unyielding will to smother his nature into silence. His scent was a faint, nondescript hint of old paper and ink, a carefully curated mask. His latest victory was a trade policy that had crippled a rebellious duke's finances. The council was assembled to hear the report. As Wei Luo stood before the long table of alphas and powerful betas, his voice was a calm, uninflected stream of logic. He felt the usual prickling awareness, the weight of predatory gazes that saw only a clever, fragile beta. He was used to it. Then, a new presence entered the chamber. General Zhao Sun, the Wolf of the Northern Pass, had returned to the capital. He swept in, a storm of dark armor and imposing height, the scent of pine forests and cold steel rolling off him in a potent, controlled alpha wave. Counselors stiffened. Wei Luo's carefully suppressed instincts screamed a primal warning. He did not flinch. He kept reading, his fingers tightening imperceptibly on his scroll. Zhao Sun took his seat directly across from Wei Luo. His eyes, the color of weathered iron, settled on the strategist. They did not waver. They saw past the gray robes, the lowered head, the paper and ink scent. They saw the subtle tension in his throat, the faint, almost invisible tremor of a pulse beating too fast. Wei Luo finished and risked a glance up. The general's gaze was not one of hunger or conquest. It was one of recognition. A deep, unsettling understanding that saw the fortress Wei Luo had built and acknowledged its existence without challenging it. The Minister of War, a blustering alpha, scoffed at a point about border logistics. What would a scribe know of supply lines? He jeered. Before Wei Luo could formulate his ice-cold rebuttal, Zhao Sun spoke. His voice was a low rumble that vibrated in the stone chamber. The scribe, minister, outlined a flaw in your own garrison's reports that left 300 of my men without winter coats last year. I suggest you listen. The minister paled and sat down. Zhao Sun did not look at Wei Luo again, but a barrier had been erected, an unspoken shield. Later, as a bitter winter draft snaked through the colonnade, Wei Luo gathered his scrolls, his slender fingers going white with cold. A heavy, warm weight settled on his shoulders. A commander's cloak, lined with gray wolf fur, smelling powerfully of pine and snow. He froze. Zhao Sun walked past him without breaking stride, speaking to an aide as if he'd done nothing at all. The cloak was an offer of warmth, not a claim. The distinction was everything. Wei Luo stood alone in the colonnade, engulfed in the alpha's scent, feeling more seen and more protected than he had in his entire life, and utterly terrified. Chapter 2. The Unasked for Protection. The cloak became a routine. Zhao Sun never handed it to him. He would simply leave it draped over Wei Luo's usual chair in the strategy room, or on a bench in the courtyard where Wei Luo took his solitary noon respite. It was always there before the chill could set in. Wei Luo never thanked him aloud. To acknowledge, it was to acknowledge the awareness behind it. But he wore it. Their interactions were a study in silent language. Zhao Sun would leave a relevant military dispatch accidentally among Wei Luo's paperwork. Wei Luo would misplace a strategic analysis where the general would find it. They began to work in tandem, their minds aligning on troop movements and diplomatic solutions with eerie synergy. The court whispered, the ghost and the wolf. An odd alliance. Wei Luo's suppressants were becoming less effective. The constant low-grade stress of the court, the unprecedented proximity to a powerful, perceptive alpha whose presence was a constant, quiet challenge to his control, it was eroding his careful walls. He increased his herbal doses, the bitter tea making him nauseous but clear-headed. One evening, working late in the archives, the wave hit him. Not a heat. He would die before he let that happen. But a sudden, dizzying weakness, a flush of fever betraying slickness. His scent control slipped. For one horrific second, the clean, subtle scent of winter plum blossom, his true omega scent, bled into the air, mingling with dust and old parchment. He slammed his mental walls down, gasping, clutching the table. The door to the archive opened. Zhao Sun stood there, having returned for a forgotten missive. The air was thick with the fleeting, fading sweetness of plum blossom and the immediate, aggressive surge of protective pine and steel. Zhao Sun's eyes flared, his alpha instincts undoubtedly roaring at the scent of a vulnerable omega in distress. Wei Luo braced for the worst. For advance, for demand, for the end of his life as he knew it. Zhao Sun took one step inside. Then he stopped. He did not come closer. His jaw was clenched so tightly a muscle leaped in his cheek, his hands fisted at his sides. The struggle was visible, physical. The instinct to claim warring with something else. He took a deliberate step back. Then another. He reached behind him, never breaking eye contact with Wei Luo, and pulled the archive door shut, sealing Wei Luo inside, alone. Wei Luo slid to the floor, trembling. The general had not only restrained himself, he had given Wei Luo privacy. He had contained the situation and Wei Luo's secret by locking him in. It was the most profound respect and the most shocking defiance of biology Wei Luo had ever witnessed. The next morning, a simple, unmarked clay pot appeared on Wei Luo's desk. Inside was a tea blend of rare, soothing herbs, not suppressants but stabilizers. Things to strengthen, not to smother. There was no note. Wei Luo brewed it. It tasted of mountain springs and patience. He drank it wearing Zhao Sun's cloak, the general's scent and his medicine creating a paradoxical haven of safety. The invisible line between them remained. But on either side of it, a silent understanding was growing, root by deliberate root. Chapter 3. The Gathering Storm. The political storm broke with the suddenness of summer lightning. The ambitious Prince Kai, backed by a cabal of disgruntled southern lords, launched his coup. It was not a noisy battle at the gates, but a silent, vicious knife fight in the palace's heart. Loyal guard were poisoned. Key ministers were seized in their beds. The shrieks and clash of steel finally echoed through the hall of celestial harmony at midnight. Wei Luo was in the strategy office, burning sensitive documents, his heart a frantic drum. His planning had anticipated many of Prince Kai's moves, but the speed and brutality were shocking. The palace was being severed from the loyal garrison outside the city walls. They were on an island of treachery. The door burst open. Zhao Sun stood there, armor blood-spattered, his scent a raging storm of pine and iron and battle fury. In that moment, he was every inch the primal alpha, a conqueror of realms. His iron eyes found Wei Luo. With me. Now. It was not a request. Wei Luo didn't hesitate. To stay was death or worse. He fell in step behind the general, who moved like a force of nature through the chaotic halls, cutting down any of Prince Kai's men who barred their way. Wei Luo, who had never held a sword, followed in the space cleared by Zhao Sun's violence, shielded by the very bloodshed he abhorred. Zhao Sun didn't take them to the barracks or the main gates. He took them to the one place no one would think to secure, the ancient, disused royal observatory, a tower of mathematics and stargazing, high and isolated. He barred the heavy oak door, then a second, inner iron door. The room was circular, cold, and lined with books and astronomical instruments. The only sounds were their ragged breathing and the distant chaos below. And then Wei Luo's body betrayed him utterly. The adrenaline, the terror, the overwhelming, pervasive scent of a battle-ready alpha protecting him. It shattered his fragile control. A full, violent preheat wave crashed over him. He cried out, falling against a chart table as a searing cramp doubled him over. His scent broke free in a desperate, sweet torrent. winter plum blossoms in a hot, sudden thaw. The effect on Zhao Sun was instantaneous and terrifying. A deafening alpha growl ripped from his throat, echoing in the stone tower. His eyes burned with feral gold. He took one step forward, his entire body vibrating with the imperative to claim, soothe, protect, possess. Wei Luo looked up through a haze of pain and fear, met those blazing eyes, and whispered one word, not as a strategist, but as the Omega he was, please. Zhao Sun stopped as if he'd hit a wall. He shuddered violently. He turned and drove his fist into the stone wall with a sickening crack. Then again, pain to fight the instinct. He turned his back on Wei Luo, his broad shoulders heaving. The corner, he gritted out, his voice ragged with strain. Take the far corner. Do not speak. Do not move if you can help it. It was an order, a lifeline. Wei Luo crawled to the designated corner, curling into himself, shaking with the physiological tempest. Zhao Sun remained at the door, back turned, a statue of tension. He did not approach. He did not look. He stood guard between Wei Luo and the world, and between his own nature and the vulnerable Omega behind him. The night stretched, an eternity of silent agony and monumental restraint. The only thing louder than Wei Luo's soft, pained whimpers was the sound of Zhao Sun's controlled, ragged breathing and the occasional, sharp crack of his knuckles as he clenched and re-clenched his injured hand. In that tower, amidst the scent of plum blossoms and pain, pine and blood, a new bond was forged. Not one of teeth and claiming, but of choice and sacrifice. The wolf chose to guard the ghost, even from himself. Chapter 4. The Dawn After. The first gray light of dawn crept into the observatory. The cramps had subsided to a dull, manageable ache. The overwhelming scent had receded, brought back under Wei Luo's iron will, though the air still hummed with its memory. Zhao Sun had not moved from his post at the door. His knuckles were raw and bloody. The tension in his frame was still palpable, but the feral gold had faded from his eyes, leaving only exhausted, grim iron. Wei Luo uncurled himself, his robes damp with sweat. He felt shattered, exposed, but alive. Alive because of the man whose back was still to him. "General," he said, his voice hoarse from disuse and suppressed cries. Zhao Sun's head tilted slightly, but he did not turn. Is it past? The wave is. The danger remains. He meant the coup, but the double meaning hung between them. Finally, Zhao Sun turned. He looked exhausted, haunted. His gaze swept over Wei Luo, a clinical assessment. Can you walk? Yes. The coup is failing, Zhao Sun said flatly. My lieutenants outside the walls received my signal. They've retaken the main gates. Prince Kai is cornered in the eastern pavilions. He delivered the report as if reading a dispatch. Your analysis of his supply lines was correct. His men had only a day's rations. They broke at dawn. Wei Luo absorbed this. Their work, his strategy, Zhao Sun's force had held. What now? Now, Zhao Sun said, walking to a small basin of water left by some long-ago astronomer. He gingerly washed his bloody hand. Now, you will wait here until I send a man I trust, a beta, to escort you to your quarters. You will report that you hid in the archives during the fighting. You were never here. I never found you. And you? Wei Luo asked, watching him. I will go and finish this. Zhao Sun's tone was final. He finished cleaning his hand, then shrugged off his outer cloak, the one he'd worn in battle, stained and smelling of smoke and blood. He walked over and placed it, not on Wei Luo, but beside him on the floor. Then he retrieved his older, cleaner cloak from where it had been discarded in the night, the one that smelled purely of pine and steel, and laid it over Wei Luo's shoulders. The silent exchange was profound. I give you my protection, not my violence. He walked to the door, unbarred it, and paused. Without looking back, he said the tea. Increase the dosage of the silver leaf vine. It will steady your nerves without the side effects of the foxglove you're using. Then he was gone, the iron door closing with a soft, definitive click. He knew Wei Luo's entire regiment. He had likely known for weeks. Wei Luo sat in the silence, wrapped in the general's scent, stunned. Zhao Sun had fought a battle on two fronts last night, against the traitors and against his own soul. He had emerged victorious from both, and his first act at dawn was to protect Wei Luo's secret with meticulous care. When the Beta Guardsmen arrived, silent and respectful, Wei Luo followed him through the scarred palace. He saw the evidence of Zhao Sun's finishing, efficient, clean, and over. Prince Kai was in chains. In his own chambers, Wei Luo poured the last of the gifted herbal tea. As he drank, a sealed note was delivered. Not from Zhao Sun. It was from the emperor's own secretary. In recognition of loyal service during the insurrection, strategist Wei Luo is promoted to senior advisor to the Imperial Military Council. His first liaison, General Zhao Sun. It was a promotion born of necessity, wrapping their necessary collaboration in the cloak of imperial decree. It was also a cage of guilt. They would now be forced into daily, official contact. Wei Luo set down the cup. Fear was there, cold and familiar. But beneath it, something else stirred. A treacherous, warm filament of something that felt like anticipation. The game had changed. The wolf had been given official leave to stand by the ghost's side. And the ghost, for the first time, wondered if he wanted to remain a phantom. Chapter 5. The Gilded Cage. The promotion was a prison of honor. As senior advisor to the Imperial Military Council, Wei Luo was given an office adjacent to Zhao Sun's in the Strategic Command Wing. Their doors, by decree, were to remain open unless discussing matters of supreme secrecy. They were to take meals together with other officers, review troop deployment side by side, and present a unified front to the court. It was a special kind of torture. Proximity to Zhao Sun was now a constant, official requirement. Wei Luo's suppressants worked overtime. The herbal tea from the general a lifeline he accepted with silent gratitude, brewing it openly on a small brazier in his office. Let them think it was for focus. Zhao Sun was correct. Impeccably, infuriatingly so. He never referenced the night in the observatory. He treated Wei Luo with a formal respect that was mirrored by the entire staff. The protective gestures continued, but were now cloaked in bureaucratic necessity. Advisor Wei requires the latest topographic maps of the Southern Pass, Zhao Sun would say to a clerk, ensuring Wei Luo had resources before he even asked. When a particularly arrogant alpha captain spoke over Wei Luo in a meeting, Zhao Sun would simply let the silence stretch until the man faltered, then say, "You were interrupting the advisor's point." Concluded, Advisor Wei. He left a thicker, winter-grade version of his cloak on Wei Luo's chair as the seasons turned. Wei Luo found himself studying the general not just as a military asset, but as a man. He saw the careful way Zhao Sun modulated his alpha presence in enclosed spaces, dialing it down to a non-threatening hum. He noticed the general's preference for logic over bluster, his surprising patience with young, nervous officers. He saw the shadows under his eyes that spoke of sleepless nights, likely spent wrestling the same instincts he'd mastered in the tower. One afternoon, working late on a supply chain model, Wei Luo's headache spiked, a side effect of his herbs. He pressed his fingers to his temple, eyes closed. The ginger root should be sliced, not ground. Wei Luo's eyes flew open. Zhao Sun stood in the connecting doorway, holding two reports. He wasn't looking at Wei Luo, but at the teapot. For the tea, Zhao Sun clarified, his tone clinical. Sliced root steeps slower, mitigates the nausea without losing potency. He placed the reports on the desk. The figures from the quartermaster. When you're able. He left. Wei Luo stared after him, a flush that had nothing to do with fever warming his skin. Zhao Sun wasn't just giving him medicine. He was giving him advice on how to take it. The intimacy of that knowledge, delivered with such detached practicality, was dizzying. The fragile equilibrium shattered during the imperial hunt. It was a display of power, of alpha prowess. Wei Luo, as a senior official, was required to attend, though he stayed well back from the forest line, a gray figure amidst the vibrant silks and furs. Chancellor Luo, a cunning old fox who had supported Prince Kai until the last possible second, sidled up to him. His scent was cloying, like overripe peaches. Advisor Wei, how remarkable you've risen, and so close to our formidable general. His eyes, sharp and greedy, scanned Wei Luo up and down. One might almost smell opportunity on you. It was a probing shot in the dark, but it hit its mark. Wei Luo's control, strained by the open air and the cacophony of alpha scents, slipped. For a fraction of a second, a thread of true scent, plum blossom, escaped. Chancellor Luo's nostrils flared. His eyes widened, then narrowed with voracious understanding. A slow, triumphant smile spread across his face. He had found the chink in the ghost's armor, a secret more valuable than any military plan. Before he could speak, a shadow fell over them. Zhao Sun stood there, having appeared as silently as a true wolf. He held a dead pheasant by its neck, blood dripping on the grass. His presence was a physical wall, his pine and steel scent surging forward to aggressively blanket Wei Luo's, to erase it from the Chancellor's perception. Chancellor, Zhao Sun's voice was quieter than the rustle of leaves and deadlier. The Emperor requests your opinion on the new tax edicts. He is at the royal tent. Now, it was a blatant dismissal. Chancellor Luo, though seething, bowed and scurried away, casting one last, glittering look at Wei Luo. Zhao Sun did not look at Wei Luo. He stared after the Chancellor, his expression the calm before a slaughter. "The hunt is over for you," he said. "My lieutenant will escort you back to the palace. You are unwell." It was not a suggestion. Wei Luo, his heart a trap bird, nodded. As he turned to leave, Zhao Sun's hand shot out, not to touch him, but to grasp the pheasant's neck tighter. The blood flow increased, its metallic scent joining his own. A brutal, primal distraction. Wei Luo, Zhao Sun said, the first time he'd used his name since the tower. "Lock your door tonight." The enemy was no longer at the gates. He was in the council chamber. And he knew. Chapter 6. The Bargain. Chancellor Luo moved with the speed of a striking serpent. Within days, the whispers began, not loud, but insidious, slithering through the court's gilded halls. The ghost is too pale, too delicate for a beta. How does he command the general's favor without a drop of alpha blood? A clever Omega could be a powerful tool, or a devastating weakness. Wei Luo felt the eyes on him, speculative and hungry. His promotion now seemed like a prelude to a different kind of offering. He increased his herbal doses until his hands shook. The sanctuary of his work was poisoned. Zhao Sun's response was to double the overt protectiveness, making it a public performance. He became Wei Luo's shadow, his presence at Wei Luo's shoulder a constant, growling deterrent. But it was a stopgap. It only fueled the rumors. The wolf is possessive of his find. The crisis broke in the Imperial Council. Chancellor Luo, feigning concern, addressed the Emperor. "Your Majesty, the stability of the military council is paramount. Certain personal conditions of its members could lead to vulnerabilities, distractions. Perhaps Senior Advisor Wei would be more suited to a less strenuous post. The historical archives, perhaps? For his health." It was a graceful annihilation, a demand to cage the ghost permanently, framed as mercy. Wei Luo stood, frozen, the walls of his world closing in. All his work, his mind, his very self, reduced to a personal condition. Before he could form a rebuttal, Zhao Sun stood. His voice did not rise. It cut through the chamber like a glacier calving. Chancellor Luo questions the stability of the man whose strategy secured the southern border and broke the late rebellion. He questions the judgment of the Emperor who promoted him. And he questions my ability to command alongside a strategist of proven, unparalleled worth. He turned his iron gaze on the Chancellor. This sounds like the distraction, not Advisor Wei's health. The Emperor, tired and pragmatic, looked between them. "The point is taken, General. But the Chancellor's concern for protocol is noted. The Council's integrity must be beyond reproach." It was a draw, a deadly one. Wei Luo was left hanging in the balance. That night, a single, heavy knock sounded on Wei Luo's chamber door. He opened it to find Zhao Sun still in full formal attire. Without a word, The general stepped inside and closed the door. The space, which had always felt too large, suddenly felt far too small. "He will not stop," Zhao Sun stated. "He will use you to get to me, or trade your secret to another. You will be removed from your post, and then you will be claimed by the highest bidder." Wei Luo knew he was right. "So this is the end of my service?" "No," Zhao Sun said, his eyes burning in the dim light. "It is the beginning of a different strategy." He took a deep breath, as if bracing for a charge. "Marry me." Wei Luo's mind went blank. "What?" "A marriage alliance," Zhao Sun clarified, his words rapid, strategic. "As my legal spouse, your position is unassailable. Your status merges with mine. To challenge you is to challenge a general of the Northern Pass, a member of the Zhao clan. Your secrets become our secrets, protected by military and familial privilege. Is the only legal fortress strong enough?" Wei Luo stared at him. It was a cold, brilliant tactical move. A marriage of pure convenience. The ultimate shield. "And what do you gain from this fortress?" he whispered. Zhao Sun was silent for a long moment. "I gain," he said finally, each word weighted, "the continued service of the finest strategic mind in the empire. I gain an end to the court's speculation about my interest in you. I gain a partner who does not flinch from truth." He met Wei Luo's eyes. "And you would gain my vow, as sworn on my ancestral blade. The marriage will be in name and protection only. Your autonomy, your body, your will, they remain yours. No claim, no expectation, ever." The promise hung in the air, more shocking than the proposal itself. In a world where alphas owned their omegas by law and custom, Zhao Sun was offering a contract of pure, sterile defense. He was building Wei Luo a castle and promising to never set foot inside the keep. Wei Luo's heart hammered against his ribs. It was the logical move, the only move. Yet, the thought of being bound to Zhao Sun, even in this artificial way, sent a tremor through him that was not entirely fear. It was the terrifying echo of the trust built in a bloody tower, the warmth of a cloak in winter, the quiet advice on tea. "Why?" The question escaped him again, the same one from the archives. "Why go to such lengths?" Zhao Sun took a step closer. The scent of pine and steel was not a threat. It was an anchor. Because the world wishes to reduce you to your biology, to make you a prize or a prisoner. I have seen your mind. I have seen your strength. It is a crime I will not permit. His voice dropped. "Let them call you mine if they must. In truth, Wei Luo, I am simply asking to stand with you." It was not a confession of love. It was something perhaps rarer, a confession of profound, unwavering respect, a choice to defy the very order of their world. Wei Luo looked at the alpha who had chosen restraint in a tower, who offered a shield instead of a chain. He thought of the archives, the cold colonnade, the bloody pheasant. He thought of a future of fear versus a future of formidable, if strange, alliance. He drew a shaking breath. "Why?" "Yes." Chapter 7. The Silent Wedding. The wedding was a state function, devoid of joy, rich with implication. It was held in the Grand Temple, with the emperor himself presiding. Wei Luo wore layers of formal silver and gray, high-collared and severe. Zhao Sun stood beside him in his general's regalia, a statue of martial solemnity. They exchanged the ceremonial jade cups, their fingers not touching. They bowed to the ancestors, to the emperor, to each other. When the officiant pronounced them bound, the expected surge of alpha sent to cement the claim never came. Zhao Sun's presence remained as it always was, controlled, steady, a guarded wall. The court watched, buzzing with confused speculation. Where was the triumph? The possession? The Chancellor Luo looked on, his smile strained. His weapon, the secret of Wei Luo's designation, had been rendered inert, sealed within a union too powerful to casually challenge. The wedding feast was a torturous parade of well wishes and veiled probes. Wei Luo sat beside his new husband, picking at food he couldn't taste. Zhao Sun drank sparingly, deflecting intrusive questions with monosyllabic answers or a cold stare that promised violence. When they finally retired, it was not to the general's quarters, but to a new, adjacent set of apartments that had been connected by a single, ornate door. Zhao Sun led Wei Luo to the threshold of what was clearly the Omega's side. Softer, filled with books and maps, a scholar's haven. Zhao Sun stopped at the door. "This is yours. The door has a lock on your side. My quarters are through there." He gestured to another door on the far wall of the sitting room. "It will remain locked from my side, unless there is an emergency. You have your autonomy, as sworn." He then did something extraordinary. He reached up and unclasped the heavy general's cloak from his own shoulders, the symbol of his rank and power. He did not offer it. He placed it carefully over the back of a chair in the shared sitting room, a territory between them. "A token," he said, his voice rough, "for this space, so it smells of alliance." Then he turned and walked to his own door. He paused, back still turned. "Rest well, Advisor Wei." The door closed softly behind him. Wei Luo heard the distinct sound of a key turning in the lock. From Zhao Sun's side, the reality of the bargain settled over him. He was married. He was safe. He was utterly, completely alone in a room that smelled of pine and steel and a promise that felt, in that moment, like the most devastating form of loneliness. He walked to the general's cloak, his fingers brushing the rich, dark wool. He expected to feel like a fraud, a captive in a gilded cell. Instead, he felt a surge of something else. A fierce, defiant pride. Zhao Sun had built him a fortress with a drawbridge he alone controlled. He had been given not a cage, but a citadel. Weeks passed. They settled into a bizarre, peaceful routine. They took breakfast together in the sitting room, discussing court affairs and military logistics with the same focused synergy as before. They went to their separate offices, worked, returned. Sometimes they worked late in the sitting room, scrolls spread between them, the only sound the scratch of brushes and the crackle of the fire. The cloak remained on the chair. Wei Luo found himself, on difficult nights, wrapping it around his shoulders as he worked. The scent was no longer just protection. It was familiarity. It was the scent of quiet conversation, of shared glances across the council table, of safety. One such night, a violent storm rattled the palace windows. Wei Luo, plagued by an old ache from his suppression regimen, sat huddled in the cloak, trying to concentrate. A particularly loud crack of thunder made him jump, a small, pained gasp escaping him. The connecting door opened. Zhao Sun stood there, dressed in simple sleeping robes, hair loose. He looked younger, softer, and utterly alert. His eyes went immediately to Wei Luo's face, seeing the pain he tried to hide. Without a word, Zhao Sun went to the brazier, prepared Wei Luo's herbal tea with precise, practiced movements, sliced ginger root and all, and brought it to him. He placed it on the table, then retreated to the opposite chair, picking up a report to read. He did not ask what was wrong. He did not offer comfort. He simply stayed, a silent, solid presence across the room, guarding him through the storm as he had once guarded him through a night of terror. Wei Luo sipped the tea, the warmth spreading through him. He watched Zhao Sun read, the firelight dancing on the sharp planes of his face. The ache subsided, not from the herbs, but from a profound, terrifying realization. The fortress walls were still there, but within them something was growing. Something that had nothing to do with convenience and everything to do with the silent, chosen space between two chairs in a shared room. Chapter 8. The Choice, Not the Instinct. The final threat came from beyond the border. A barbarian warlord, hearing of internal strife and a soft Omega, influencing the Empire's great wolf general, saw weakness. He massed his forces and sent a derisive message. He would take the Empire's fragrant treasure as a war prize. The court was thrown into panic. Chancellor Luo seized his chance. The alliance has made us look weak. The general's attachment clouds his judgment. Perhaps the advisor should be sent to a secure temple for the duration of the conflict. For his own safety, of course. It was the old ploy, now with the fuel of a foreign threat. The emperor, under pressure, looked weary. "General Zhao, the threat is to your household." Zhao Sun stood. The air in the throne room grew heavy with his unleashed presence, not of anger, but of absolute, unshakable authority. The threat, he said, his voice echoing, is to the Empire, and it will be met by the Empire's general and its senior military advisor. Together, he turned his gaze on the Chancellor, and it was final. My spouse's place is at the strategy table, not in a temple. The next person to suggest otherwise questions my loyalty and my capability. I will answer that question with steel. The challenge was absolute. The court held its breath. Later, in the War Council, Zhao Sun and Wei Luo were a machine. Wei Luo devised a strategy that used the warlord's contempt against him. A feigned retreat, a split of their forces through a narrow pass the barbarians would see as a trap for a weaker mind. It was ruthless, elegant, and risky. The fainting force will be exposed, a senior general argued. They will bear the brunt of the attack. Who will lead it? I will, Zhao Sun said. A murmur rose. The general leading the bait? It was unheard of. It must be you, Wei Luo said softly, only to Zhao Sun, in the private language they developed. Only your presence will make the bait credible enough to draw their full fury. Zhao Sun nodded. He understood the gamble. He was placing himself in the jaws of the beast, trusting Wei Luo's plan to snap the trap shut from afar. On the eve of the battle, in their sitting room, the tension was a live thing. Wei Luo finalized the deployment orders, his hand steady. Zhao Sun polished his sword. The left flank timing is critical, Wei Luo said, not looking up. If Colonel Feng is even a quarter-hour late. He will not be late, Zhao Sun said. I spoke with him. He understands what you built. They all do. Wei Luo finally looked up. Zhao Sun was watching him, his iron eyes soft in the lamplight. The fear Wei Luo had bottled up, the fear of the plan failing, of the man across from him not returning, surfaced. What if I miscalculated? The whisper was torn from him. Zhao Sun set his sword down. He walked over and knelt before Wei Luo's chair, putting them at eye level. He did not touch him. Then we will have miscalculated together, as partners. He searched Wei Luo's face. You have given me your strategy, Wei Luo. Your trust. That is all I have ever required. The words hung between them, stripping away the last pretense of a marriage of convenience. This was partnership. This was faith. Zhao Sun rose to leave for the front. At the door, he stopped. For a long moment, he simply looked at Wei Luo, as if memorizing him. Then, he did something he had never done before. He breached the invisible, chosen space between them. He leaned down and pressed his lips, not to Wei Luo's mouth, but to his forehead. A kiss of benediction, of profound, chosen care. It was over before Wei Luo could process it, a fleeting warmth that seared his skin. Come back with victory, Wei Luo breathed. Come back to you, Zhao Sun corrected softly. Then he was gone. The battle was a masterpiece of orchestrated chaos. Everything Wei Luo predicted came to pass. The warlord took the bait, chasing Zhao Sun's retreating force with reckless hunger, right into the jaws of the hidden troops. The trap sprung perfectly. Wei Luo monitored it all from the command post, a symphony of runners and reports. When the final courier arrived, grinning, shouting, total victory, the warlord is captured, the tent erupted in cheers. Wei Luo did not cheer. He stood, his eyes fixed on the tent flap. Minutes later, it was shoved aside. Zhao Sun entered, armor dented and bloodied, his scent a wild mix of pine, steel, sweat, and triumph. His eyes found Wei Luo instantly. He crossed the tent, the celebrating officers parting for him without a word. He stopped before Wei Luo. The entire command staff fell silent, watching. Zhao Sun did not embrace him. He did not claim him. He simply reached out and, with a tenderness that belied his warrior's hands, straightened a fold of Wei Luo's gray robe that was already perfectly straight. The strategy, he said, his voice raw with exhaustion and something else, something fierce and proud, was flawless. It was the highest praise he could give. In that moment, before the entire court's military elite, he honored not the Omega, but the strategist. He defined Wei Luo by his choice, his mind, his will. Wei Luo looked into the eyes of the Alpha who had shielded him, bargained for him, trusted him with his life and his army. He saw not instinct, not obligation, but a reflection of his own silent, chosen devotion. Later, in the privacy of their sitting room, with the sounds of victory echoing outside, they stood amidst the maps and reports. The general's cloak still lay on the chair. The locked door stood between their chambers. Zhao Sun looked at it, then at Wei Luo. The bargain is fulfilled. You are safe. The threat is over. The lock. He gestured, leaving the sentence unfinished. The choice was Wei Luo's. He was giving him back the drawbridge, even now. Wei Luo looked at the lock, then at the man who had never once asked for anything but his trust. He thought of forehead kisses and straightened robes, of shared silences and roaring storms faced side by side. He walked to the connecting door. He did not unlock it. Instead, he turned to face Zhao Sun. The world, Wei Luo said, his voice clear and sure, tells us what we are. Alpha, Omega, instinct, claim. He took a step forward, then another, closing the space between them, the space they had so carefully maintained. You have shown me, every day, that we are what we choose. He reached out, his hand steady, and placed it over Zhao Sun's heart, feeling the strong, steady beat beneath the armor. I choose this, Wei Luo whispered. I choose you, not because my biology calls for you, but because my soul recognizes yours. For a heartbeat, Zhao Sun was utterly still. Then, a shudder ran through him. The last vestige of control, the final wall built to protect Wei Luo from even himself, crumbled. He wrapped his arms around Wei Luo, pulling him close, burying his face in his hair. His embrace was not one of conquest, but of surrender, to trust, to choice, to love. In a world that reduced them to biology, they had written their own law, not of Alpha and Omega, but of Zhao Sun and Wei Luo. A bond forged in silent choices, defended with unwavering will, and sealed at last with a mutual, breathtaking yes.